there was morning. And then God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things." And then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image." And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea."
These are all hazelnut husks I get from a farmer friend of mine who grows them. It's crazy, they just eat these all whole in the shell of the actual kernel. It's like 7% protein. It's pretty high. It's like half as much as corn, just in the shell. What's up, ladies? Our farm here grows for our local food shelf and partners with 2 other Catholic worker communities. The Catholic Worker is a movement that started in 1933 in New York City with this woman, Dorothy and Peter Morin, to serve the homeless with soup kitchens and houses of hospitality.
Originally, the vision was to be a back to the land movement. There are about 24 Catholic worker farms across the world, but mostly within the United States.
Catholic workers generally have a commitment to live voluntary poverty, at least live below the federal taxable income.
A friend of ours uses the phrase practicing for when peace breaks out, because if really we were to live in a world filled with peace, we wouldn't be able to live with the kind of resource extraction that's happening.
In 1992, when a lot of the world was wanting to celebrate the 500 years since Columbus, the indigenous people were just wanting their damn land back. And I was involved in a team of people who was working with the Guarani. I returned from there after 2 years. I was really having a difficult time of reverse acculturation, and I wanted to be more sensitive about land use around here.
This is just a little olive oil, kind of like a lubricant almost for my hands to slide a little bit better. Because especially when it gets colder, their teeth get a little drier. And so I just put a little on there and it makes it slide. And then she'll give about 3 gallons.
Our children were homeschooled, and so the context in which they were raised in was very removed from the consumeristic milieu.
Just start slowly.
But they're so tiny.
Okay.
A lot of our needs are met on the land, and I don't just mean the food. We throw lots of great parties.
Community life, particularly community life that's engaged in doing meaningful work. Our resources are combined to meet our collective needs. And that also allows us to take more risk, whether that be, the risk to try a new enterprise on the farm or political organizing and resistance work.
Water is a human right. Stop the shutoffs now. Water is a human right. Stop the shutoffs now.
We want to share in this gift of life that is water.
Catholic Worker has a long tradition, a decades-long tradition of civil disobedience, starting especially in the 50s, especially protesting against the nuclear war drills where people would have to duck and cover. The Catholic Workers started protests sitting out in Central Park in New York City saying we refuse to submit to this fear.
Can I just have the folks who are risking arrest raise their hands?
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved to silence.
And I think in the last few years especially, we're starting to grapple with the fact that so many of us are white. We have a lot of privilege in being able to get arrested and released. And so in the last few years, at least in the Midwest Catholic Worker Movement, we've been doing a lot of anti-racism training.
Before slavery, we took away the land from Native people. So I'm trying to go back. When did we have like a healthy, just food system? We can't build a sustainable food system on the foundation of an oppressive social and economic system. Dismantling racism isn't extra work. It is the work.
I'm a skilled observer of people and nature. This is a black walnut plantation. That word plantation, I always think about that, what that comes from, the history of plantation. And essentially, it's a monoculture. It needs to be diversified. They're putting hazelnuts in between as they thin it.
We all know the economics of organic food or sustainably produced food. The cost is great. The subsidies of commodities and conventional growing are so great. Land access for the kind of growing that people want to do on a smaller scale is nearly impossible, if not incredibly expensive.
There's lots of places around the country where religious communities have lots of land, and often kind of the most beautiful spots of land.
I am a Cincinnati Dominican sister, and you're at Cincinnati, Wisconsin. And Cincinnati is the mother house of a congregation of Catholic sisters. There are, right now, there are 450 of us. How are you? I think of you all the time. How are you?
Well, for an older lady, not too bad. What do you think of me?
I know my uncle, after Grandma died, he got rid of the land. And I drive by that almost every day, and I see the hills and the fields, and that was part of who I am. Mm-hmm. But once you let that go, you have the money in your hand for an instant, and it's gone. Mm-hmm. And so is the land.
Young people who really want to be on the land don't have access.
Farms are too big.
Right.
I mean, basically, Iowa is soybeans and corn.
Yeah, that's right. So we're looking at giving plots of land to younger people, setting up opportunities for people who have no access to land. The way we hold the land is that we hold it in common. This is not an individual's property. We're looking at a vision which is all about building relationships. We're looking into rotational grazing. We're looking into a lot of local food production. This belongs to the community in terms of ownership. So when I die, the land is still going to be here. So you saw the cemeteries, right? We're all buried here.
Lord, take these humble gifts, grass, leaves, soil, holy vessels of self-emptying glory. After several months of heating and turning and cooling, into that I will plant speckled trout, lettuce, sugar snap peas. The people's hunger would be flattened, but it would never end. And all the while, the secret life of soil would go on, with or without you.